Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Wedding Ceremony Podcast. We talk about anything and everything that has to do with wedding ceremonies. I don't know what episode this is, but we're in the second season after a long layoff, and things are going well. My name is Clint Huft, and with me is a gentleman that wants to ask a question, and I think you're all going to be able to answer it. J.P. Reynolds.
Hey, Clint.
Hey, JP.
Hey, Clint. I was just going to be a wise guy and I was going to say to you, how are you? But that's not really my question.
No. Okay. We'll get to the question in just a second.
All right.
If you're joining us for the first time, you should know that both JP and I are working wedding officiants. We do it on the regular, and that's why we bring all of that experience, but also you all understand the concept of, I can't believe what just happened last week. That's also part of the podcast. You should know that JP is an accomplished author. His books are in the Amazon store and in the Kindle store in Amazon. He is a communications expert. TheBusinessOfConfidence.com is that website. His wedding website is jprweddings.com. Mine is Clint Huft. It's just my name, CLINTHUFFT.com for all the things that I do. All right, JP, I can wait no longer. Ask
All right,
away.
Clint. This is so left field. Binoculars would not help you to see it. All right. But I am genuinely interested in your perspective because you are an officiant and you are a father and you are the father of a daughter. So it's in that double capacity that I'm now turning to you.
Okay.
Okay. One of my goddaughters, I have five goddaughters.
Five? Did you
One
say
of,
five?
yeah, I give good gifts. People just keep asking me to give godfather. Katie is getting married in November. Katie is 40 years old. She has been married previously, briefly, marrying a man around the same age as she is. Now, here's the thing. It's November, so I am not really focused on the details of the ceremony at this point in time. So last week, her mother, or her stepmother, who's Katie considers to be her mother, called me very distressed. And I have been friends with this woman for decades, and we have been there for each other in good times and in bad. And she's very distressed. Essentially, the bottom line is because Katie has decided she wants to walk down the aisle alone.
Oh, I am so glad you brought this up. This is perfect. I wanted to talk about this as well. So keep going.
I said, "Oh, well, that's lovely." Well, this is the, what do you mean that's lovely? She said, "You're telling me that her father and I are supposed to just be sitting there when she walks down the aisle?" I said, "Well, technically, you'll be standing because I will have asked everybody to stand when she comes down the aisle." She says, "A great question that has been asked down through the centuries. Quote, what will people think?"
Oh, yeah.
It's so disrespectful to her father. My friend did not came into the life of the family when Katie and her brother were probably in middle school, so they were older. She is beside herself and made it very clear she did not want to hear my philosophy of ritual and ceremony and weddings. I want to hear my theology on it. She said it's just heartbreaking that she
Wow.
doesn't want her father to walk her down the aisle. As I say, Katie is 40 years old, had a brief previous marriage. Her fiance was previously married. His best man is his teenage son. These are not the captain of the football team and the homecoming princess getting married right after high school. So here I am.
Yes, you are. Did you say anything to her about that, or did you just listen and let her vent?
As with any great family drama,
Yes.
psychodrama, I originally was friends with Pat, with the mother,
Mhm.
and then I became friends, developed a separate friendship with the husband when she married him. So I'm friends with each of them, and then I'm friends with them as a couple. I asked her, I said, "Well, what is," because I had dinner with Doug just a few weeks ago, and he said nothing to me about this. I asked her if Katie had brought this up to Doug, and she said, "Well, not yet. And it's going to, I'm telling you, it's going to break his heart." So
Mm.
I said, "Well, I think Katie needs to have a conversation with her father sooner rather than later." I said, "And we can see if that big lug's heart is broken."
I agree with
And I
that.
said, "But I," and
Yeah.
yeah, and I'll just, and I, of course, said, "But I know a good cardiologist."
If the heart is broken.
because my heart is broken and my rib cage. Because I had 5 hour surgery. You want to talk about a broken heart, lady?
Is that when you ripped your shirt open and showed her the
Right.
scar? Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. I have nothing else to say. So you can I'll just sit here and listen to you.
All right. Well, first of all, there's a couple of layers to this. One
Yes.
one is the
Yes.
concept that you and I have seen a lot, and that's where people they get upset on somebody else's behalf without really understanding the other person and if they care. And there's a lot of different social examples of that kind of a scenario where people getting really crazy, so to speak, because they think they're defending somebody else's honor and that person isn't offended at all, or
Right.
it's not that big of a deal. That's number one.
Right.
So that brings us back
And
to
may I quickly say, Clint, that number one is a huge number one.
I appreciate the empathy, so to speak, on behalf of your friend, and she's concerned about her husband. But the circumstances are exactly the way you've laid it out. You know, this is not anybody's first rodeo. The parents have been through this, and so on. The next layer is what will people think? I don't care where you are in the world. That just seems to be a human condition that people are concerned of other people judging them. When you put it into perspective, the walk up the aisle is such a minuscule part of the entire day, but it's a very short part of the ceremony itself. There's a lot of different ways to honor the parents. I have a different perspective on this because of my older sister. She's 6 years older than me. So she got married in 1968. We grew up in a very conservative area, and I went to a Lutheran church, which I don't know if anybody knows this, but in my opinion, it's just one piece of paper nailed on the outside of a cathedral away from Catholicism. And it's very conservative.
Yes.
Okay, so my sister and her fiance, now husband of over 50 years, got married in the church that I grew up in. Again, very conservative. And she's my oldest sibling. And so she was the first one in the family to get married. She went to my father, very conservative guy. And she said, Dad, Michael and I want to enter the church side by side because we think that's how we came to this decision and that's how we're entering our marriage is together as a team. So we want to walk up the aisle together.
In the 1960s.
In 1968, yes, she said that to my dad.
Wow.
Now, there's a lot of things I respect about my father, this being one of them. He said, okay. Now, I don't know what went on behind the scenes because I was in 10th grade in high school. I have no idea what the dynamics were, the conversations were between him and my mom. I have no idea. I just know that he capitulated and he said, okay. And he gave her love and blessing. And of course, he was honored in other places throughout the day. Okay, so I have a different perspective on it because of the grace that I saw my father exhibit. It's interesting that you bring this up because there's a couple that's going to get married in a year. They're going to get married in California, but they have family from back east. Now, in our last episode of the Wedding Ceremony podcast, we had a great discussion with Desiree Adams, who is set up in Upper New York, but also handles things. And she used to work in Washington, D.C. And the two of you just went off on how East Coast is completely different. The culture is different. And so on. That brings us to the bride that was talking to me and moved to tears because you know the initial conversation and you get kind of the basics out of the way. And you and I both begin with what do you want? What do you not want? By the way, I highly encourage people to go back to the previous episode and listen to the way you phrase those questions because that's pretty funny. Here's the deal. I said, is there anything else you want to ask me? Any other questions after we've talked about everything? And she said, well, there is one thing. And the way she said it, and because we're on Zoom and I can see the fiance's face, I thought, uh-oh, we're going to go into some pretty serious, something serious is about to be expressed here, you know, and my antenna go up and I'm thinking, you know, open your heart and let's be careful. Let's be careful is the most important thing because a simple word said off the cuff can do more damage than can be recovered. So, and also they haven't hired me. We're just having a conversation. So she said that her parents are divorced. Her mother is Jewish and her father is like Episcopalian, something like that. And they got divorced when she was, I think, around 16. And she spent most of the rest of her life with her mother. And so culturally, she feels Jewish. And she said that it's a dilemma for her in regards to who's going to walk her up the aisle. Her father expects it, but her mother is the one that she's the closest to. And in a Jewish tradition, the parents both walk up the child. That's kind of
Hmm.
the heritage. Here's the other caveat. The parents don't get along at all.
Oh, that was a given. Oh, that was
No,
a given.
yeah, yeah. I guess I should have thrown that in at the very beginning
Oh,
because,
yeah, I just
yeah,
presumed that. Yes, right.
I suppose if they got along, we wouldn't be having this conversation. Everything would be rosy.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, really, really, like, I don't want to think of
Yeah.
you, much less talk to you or whatever. So I said, well, first of all, everybody that's going to be serving you on that day needs to know this story. They need to know that your
Hmm.
parents have this kind of a non relationship or antagonistic relationship. Everything should be designed so they never have to interact with each other at all. Tell your master of ceremonies at the reception this story so he never makes them, because everybody goes on autopilot and they think, well, it's just automatically this and automatically that. And it's not. I said, the next thing is, I gave her the example of my sister and her husband, fiance, walking up the aisle together and my dad being okay with it. And I don't think that really resonated. I don't think that she thinks that her dad would be that cool. She says, well, what if my brother walked me up the aisle? And I said, well, then you're kind of ostracizing both parents, so I'm not sure that's a valid solution emotionally. I'm just going to give you some options because you have plenty of time. They're going to get married next April. So they have plenty of time to figure all this out. I said, the other option you have is that you could actually approach by yourself and your fiance can come down the aisle and meet you at the last row and then escort you the rest of the way up. And then we can put something in the ceremony that honors your parents. I said, now, if your parents walk up the aisle with you, then seat your dad on one side and seat your mom on the other side. Don't make them sit together. That way, they come together next to you. You're in between them. They walk up, whatever you want to do, of who presents this woman, whatever you want to do. But then they leave on separate sides. So you don't have to have that anymore. I said, just think about all of this. However, this is the most important part. Whatever you decide, or if you need to broach the subject, do it with your father and your mother as soon as you possibly can. And here's the thing you need to emphasize with them. You want to have a happy day. You want to be really happy and have great memories of this entire day. But everybody knows that even though we want the bride to be really happy, the bride wants everybody else to be happy. And a lot of your happiness is going to be predicated on the fact that these people might be really upset on your wedding day. So that's how you broach the subject. You say, I want everybody to be happy. I want everybody to be really happy. And this is where we take a pause and the JP quote, say it,
I'm
JP.
glad you remembered that quote because I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, I am so disappointed in you, Clint. They're happy, happy, happy. We want people happy, happy, happy. We want happy, happy, happy. Do we? Is that what we want? No. It's a wedding. Oh, I mean, oh my God, I'm sitting here and listening to this Norman Vincent Peale stuff. It's like, good, good. Yeah. And and you know what? I'd say to this bride, you let both parents know. You decide on a date, and they're each going to appear before you, and they're going to make their case for why they should walk you down the aisle. And you know what? It's a sponsorship. How much money are they willing to pony up for the privilege
Very
of walking down?
transactional.
DJ will
Oh,
be
man.
saying, and tonight's first fight will be between the bride's father and mother
Right.
who hate each other. And in terms of letting people know, I would include it in the program. In the back of the program where you
Yeah.
thank people for coming, it's like, please note, do not talk to my father about my mother. Do not talk to my mother about my father. Or the wedding website. So and so, little Mary Lou. My childhood was miserable because my parents hated each other. And I am so happy that I found a man who can get me away from them.
That's much better than anything I said. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I love the idea of
Uh,
the first dance is, and in this corner,
Let's say,
uh,
oh yeah, no, I love the guy at first day. She could start with her mother, or she could start with her father, and then the mother comes over and just pushes him out of the way.
like a hip check, like hockey.
And I want to make sure those parents know that keep referring to the phrase of "if you really loved me." That's okay, sweetheart. Obviously, you love your mother more than you love me. That's the phrase that you want to just pepper. So between now and
Oh,
you see, and I like how you said between now and April, whatever. It's like, wow, between now and April, you will spend the equivalent of your wedding budget on therapy. Between now and April, you'll be asking yourself, why didn't I just elope?
yeah. We've always understood why people eloped for a million different reasons, but this is
Yes.
primarily, this is one of the main reasons is I just don't want the angst.
Now, I have, getting back to my friend, enough with your bride. No,
Yeah.
it's, in terms of my friend, I mean, and these people, I mean, obviously I'm the godfather, I'm Katie's godfather. So I'm enmeshed in this family. All
Right.
right. Lovingly,
Right.
lovingly. And, I married Pat and Doug last century, but they got married in a restaurant, very casual, in a restaurant. They forgot to get a marriage license. I arrived at the restaurant and they said, "So, Pat, do you have the license or Doug? Oh, did we need to get that for today?" Now, this is, by the way, her third wedding and his second wedding. And they're like, "My God, have we not learned anything?" I said, not technically. Do you need it for today? You just want to make sure the meter has enough quarters in it. So this is a woman who was not raised Catholic, was not raised Lutheran, who does not have a history of formal high church ritual. There's no background in formal ceremonial etiquette. So I was gobsmacked, to use one of my favorite words. This would be an issue. Now, Katie and her fiance already have asked Doug and Pat. Vincent's parents are both dead. He announced he was engaged, and they said, "We're out of here."
I mean, really out of here.
Really out of here. It's like,
When I say checked
um,
out, I mean checked
that's it.
out.
Absolutely. He and Katie asked Doug and Pat if they would do the first dance with them. So that's how they're honoring, And I said to Pat, I said, "Well, I think that's how they're honoring the two of you is, the honor of the first dance." Well, I don't like to dance. Yes,
Oh
yes, yes,
man.
yes, yes, love it.
I think someone's made up their mind.
I have not spoken to Doug. I'm going to have dinner with him. We get together maybe once a month for dinner. So in a couple of weeks, I'll be having dinner with him. And
Yeah, I like that you're going to the person that someone is concerned about and getting it straight from the horse's mouth. I like that a lot.
but again, it just deeply reminds me, and now because all funding to universities has been canceled, there will be no research on this topic of what happens to the human mind when people say we're getting married. And people who were functioning in a normal manner, suddenly something happens to the brain and they say some of the most breathtaking statement. I mean, this woman, you have to understand, I don't want to give too much away in case any random person might even actually know who she is, but preeminent professional who is accomplished, successful, award winning in her field, beloved, insightful. I have over the decades shared with her my wackadoo wedding stories. She laughs. Oh, people, aren't they something? My God, woman.
And then deep in the recesses of her brain, that
This,
little switch, the wedding switch, finally got flipped. And so did she.
what I find stunning is all of that award-winning professionalism has gone out window, door, roof, and she is now mother of the. And it's like just
Where did you come from?
this conversation occurred since our last podcast, and all I can say is like, and I think it takes a lot to like knock me off my feet, to really throw me off balance. And this conversation was like, what is going on here?
Well, if I understand correctly, you didn't respond right away. So kudos to you.
Well, she was very upfront. She said, "Look, I'm reaching out to you as my brother, as my dearest friend, and I just want you to hear this." And I'm listening, but I'm so confused. Like, I don't know what I'm listening to. So my response was to ask the question, "Well, has she spoken to Doug?" "Well, no, but I know
Yeah.
he will be heartbroken."
Right. Right.
And it's like, "Oh, that's because you are the amazing Kreskin. You can read." I mean, yes. And I'm thinking, the Doug I have dinner with every month, nah, he'll just have another martini at dinner. I think he'll be okay.
Thank goodness for time, because your wedding is not going
Yes,
to happen till November.
right. I said, November is so far away. And Pat said, "No, it'll be here in the blink of an eye." I said, "It is so far away." I said, "And what she decides 5 minutes before the start of the ceremony, who knows?" I said, 5 minutes before, I was really bad. I said, 5 minutes before the start of the ceremony, she may want to go down the aisle on a unicycle.
Oh, I'd like that.
I would love that. That's in my bucket list. Now, listen, I don't know where we are with the time, but I do have another question for you, actually.
Okay.
And it just popped up during the conversation.
Hmm?
I find it very interesting. You said when they walk up the aisle, and I always say when they walk down the aisle.
I think you're right. I always get that confused. I think you go down the aisle, then you walk back up the aisle.
Up, down.
Yeah, that's the only
Okay.
way I can figure that out is that you go back up the aisle.
Okay. It's a little bit like when people say, are you standing in line or are you standing on line?
Well, if you're digital, it's online,
No,
but
no,
if you're
no.
in person,
If you're in the store, or you're waiting for the theater, am I in
standing in
line
line.
or am I online?
Yeah, that's a
I
cultural
always
thing.
say yes. I think it is. I think New York. I'm online
Okay. All right.
because out here people will say to me, "No, you're not."
My wife and I have been married for a long time, and you've just given me a brand new question to enter into our relationship. There you go. Thank
That's
you,
the whole
JP.
purpose. That's the whole purpose of this podcast.
Because she, yes, I guess so. She comes from the East Coast. And so, by the way, the state that's right above California, what's the name of that state?
I know why you're asking. For some people, the state is Oregon, and
Yes.
for others, it's Oregon.
So, what is it for you?
It's that state above California whose name I forget. So this podcast is about a bride from Oregon who wants to walk up the aisle by herself without her father.
All right,
So
JP, tell everybody how they get in touch with you.
easiest way, website, jprweddings.com. I oftentimes talk about my book on how to officiate a wedding ceremony. You kindly remind folks that I have books, plural, in the Amazon store. I do have a book that I never really talk about on the podcast. It's How to Stay Sane While Planning for Your Wedding, Communication Tips and Tricks. And I just wanted to say that I have a couple whose wedding I'll be officiating in a couple of months, and they wanted some premarital communication coaching, not counseling, but communication coaching.
Sure.
So I sent them to my book, and I just had an email the other day, and the bride said, wow, just the book has been so helpful.
That's great. I didn't even think of this, but if people knew that existed, it would generate a level of credibility amongst other wedding professionals. Event planners always talk about how they're part counselor and therapist.
Right.
Yeah, to have that as like a resource, that's brilliant.
Right.
I'm so glad you brought that up. That's cool.
Right.
And
Right.
that's in the Amazon store under
JP Reynolds. Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect. And also, everybody knows that you're a communications coach. You just talked about that. The businessofconfidence.com is that side of your endeavors. My website is just my name, Clint Huff, CLINTHUFFT.com for all the things that I do. That's it for this episode of the Wedding Ceremony Podcast. This is Clint. And on behalf of JP, we will see you next time.